Motorsport TV Live, brought to you by Motorsport Tickets, the dedicated motorsport experiences provider.
Hello and welcome to Motorsport TV Live. I'm Chris McCarthy with all the latest from the world of motorsport. Lewis Hamilton admits Mercedes couldn't have done more to beat Red Bull in Austin. Valentino Rossi says why he was angry with fellow Italian Pecco Bagnaia, and there's a painful end to the season for one W Series driver. All those stories and more coming up here on Motorsport TV Live. Lewis Hamilton says he's not sure what Mercedes could have done differently to beat Red Bull on Sunday after losing ground to Max Verstappen in the Formula One title race. Verstappen extended his World Championship lead to 12 points, but even admitting to having his own concerns before the race that Red Bull's aggressive strategy was the right one. The Dutchman needed to put in a 27-lap stint to the finish after the final round of pit stops and looked at risk of losing the win when Hamilton began to catch at a rate of 1 second per lap, cutting an 8-second gap down to less than 2. Formula One driver Juan Pablo Montoya felt that Red Bull's strategy was spot on and they almost couldn't be beaten.
They played it really smart because they played the undercut, and then it kind of forced Lewis's hand to pit when they brought Perez in, especially in medium tires. You know what I mean? If Lewis gets stuck behind Perez, then the race is over. So they really forced their hand, and I think Mercedes played a really smart race. They thought the tire drop at the end was going to be significant, and it was, but it wasn't enough. You would say from the beginning of the race, Max seemed to have a lot more pace than Lewis. He could follow a lot closer. Lewis could barely keep up, even with a lot fresher tires. So, it was one of those weekends that it was more of Red Bull throwing it away than anything else. In my opinion, I think Red Bull had the upper hand all weekend, and it showed in the race.
Yeah, it seemed, coming out of, turn 11 in particular, that Lewis just didn't really have the pace. The car didn't look as settled than the Red Bull did. So I know Toto Wolff said if we had a couple of more laps, you never really know what could have happened. But do you think that was kind of game, set and match for Max Verstappen when they got back through?
Yeah, I think when they got through, it was pretty much set. It was kind of interesting because if you pay attention, Max, when he made about 20 laps of his stint on the first set of tires, a little less than 20 laps, he was already struggling on the hard tires. So if you look at that from Mercedes' point of view, you say, okay, let's really extend it and make a big tire difference. And they did. It was 6-7 lap difference at the end that Lewis had fresher tires. And Lewis, even with that amount of fresher tires, couldn't really make that much of an impact. It took him a few laps to really get going. And yes, he was coming, but he was coming too late, in my opinion. I don't know if he managed the tires a little bit and he just waited a little bit too long. I think what he did in the last lap should have been done maybe with 3 laps to go to put a little more pressure.
Thoughts there of ex-F1 driver Juan Pablo Montoya. Now, F1 race director Michael Masi says he plans to have talks with drivers after what he labelled a marginal call for Kimi Raikkonen's pass on Fernando Alonso. The Spaniard was left angry when race control allowed Raikkonen to keep the position despite the overtake happening when he ran wide on the curbs at the exit of Turn 1. Speaking about the incident, Masi explained that the circumstances of the incident were not clear-cut and reckoned it was something that needed bringing up with drivers at the Mexican Grand Prix. He was understanding a bit of Alonso's frustrations, but said they can choose not to follow it, and if they choose not to, I don't have the power to say you have to do this. It's I suggest that you do this, and if they choose not to, I refer that to the stewards for them to view, and they'll make their judgment accordingly. Massey added that he didn't feel Alonso was trying to prove a point with a subsequent move on Antonio Giovinazzi, and that it's just been something of a coincidence that the Alpine driver has been involved in so many FIA conversations. Newly crowned 2021 MotoGP World Champion Fabio Quartararo revealed he struggled to even eat before Sunday's title-deciding Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, suffering his worst MotoGP qualifying in tricky conditions on Saturday at Misano. Quartararo fought his way through from 15th on the grid to eventually finish 4th. It was only after race leader Francesco Bagnaia crashed out on lap 23 that it became possible for Quartararo to win the title, but he admitted feeling terrible before the race, saying he had a pain in his belly. It was a very different feeling after, though, when the Yamaha rider said he would be able to lose the pressure of trying to be world champion and can now enjoy the last 2 races of the season. It was notable that Bagnaia was one of the first people to congratulate Quartararo upon his return to the pit lane, as he became France's first MotoGP world champion and the first Yamaha rider to win the title since Jorge Lorenzo in 2015. Staying with MotoGP, and Valentino Rossi was left feeling what he described as a little bit angry that protege Pecco Bagnaia ran the hard front tyre, which ultimately caused his title-ending crash. Bagnaia and Ducati teammate Jack Miller were the only ones to choose that option in Sunday's cold race, and subsequently both crashed out. 9-time MotoGP champion Rossi said, "I think if he put on the medium front, I think he could have won because he was the fastest. But this is what I think. He had a great chance to keep open the championship." Rossi, meanwhile, made his final MotoGP appearance on home soil on Sunday and came through from last on the grid to claim just his 3rd top 10 finish of the season. When asked about the support from the fans, he summed up the day as being very, very emotional. Now, don't go anywhere. We've lots more news from the world of motorsport, including news of a carbon-neutral future for Super GT and Super Formula. That's coming up here on Motorsport TV Live. Plenty of exciting opportunities for motorsports fans to get involved with. Now, Kyle Larson's remarkable NASCAR Cup Series campaign continued as he held off Hendrick Motorsports teammate Chase Elliott at Kansas to take his 9th win of the season. Larson, who dominated much of the race, powered to the lead on a restart with 39 laps remaining and held off late challenges from Kevin Harvick and Elliott to win by just over 3.5 seconds at the finish. He's now won the first 2 races in the semi-final stage of the playoffs and remains the only driver locked into the championship for. It's also the 2nd time this season Larson has won 3 consecutive races. With 1 race remaining in the semi-final round next weekend at Martinsville, the 4 drivers lowest in points without a win are in danger of missing out on the championship 4. Currently, they are Ryan Blaney, Martin Truex Jr., Brad Keselowski and Joey Logano. It was a particularly poignant victory for the Hendrick team, coming 14 years to the day when a plane crash tragically killed 10 people, including team owner Rick Hendrick's son, brother and 2 nieces. After the race, Larson dedicated the race win to their memory.
Yeah, I didn't get to ever meet Ricky or the other men and women who lost their lives that day, but I felt the importance of this race, no doubt. So crazy kind of how it all worked out there for me to win. I know they were all looking down, helping me out there on all the restarts and stuff, and after getting in the wall. So again, thank you to Rick, Hendrick. I know this means a lot to you, and I'm glad I could get it done. So cool to get another win. I don't really know how that happened, but our HendrickCars.com Chevy was really fast. I thought we were like a 3rd place car maybe. William was really good, so hate to see the unfortunate luck there again for that team. They've been really, really strong. So glad we could capitalize and get another win, and hopefully we can go to Martinsville and get a clock.
So you had the damage on the left rear, you had damage on the right rear, you had a little bit of damage everywhere, and you were mad at yourself for a restart midway through the race. Was it that determination that I'm not going to let that happen again that got you the win today?
Well, not really. I kind of forgot about that early. I felt like I did a okay job trying to hold those guys off as long as I could on the older tires, but yeah, and then I just got a little too impatient. And, the race was kind of closing down at the end, and got loose off of 2, got in the wall, and thought for sure my chances of winning were done. But had a couple good restarts there that worked out for me. The 4 got to the 9s inside at the flag stand and kind of choked that lane up and got me clear to the lead, and had to do some blocking there, and Chase was really fast at the end, so glad I didn't have to fight him too much.
NASCAR Cup action will be very shortly at Martinsville on the 31st of October. Now, W Series driver Abby Eaton called the Circuit of the Americas sausage curbs ridiculous after contact with one of them left her with a vertebral compression fracture. The Briton was hospitalised as a result and unable to compete in Sunday's race. She now also faces several months of rehab. Writing on social media, she said, "Not ideal." Also found out one of the F4 drivers also did the same and has the exact same injury. Ridiculous. No need for them at all. Fellow driver Fabian Volvend was also launched by one of the curbs at turn 1 on the opening lap of race 2, but these were removed ahead of the later Formula 1 race. Now, organisers of both Super Formula and Super GT have announced their intentions to begin testing carbon-neutral fuels in 2022, with Super GT aiming to move away from traditional fossil fuels for the 2023 season. Super Formula did not attach a specific time frame to the introduction of next-generation fuel, but a special mule car will begin testing from next season. That could then be phased in along with the championship's next generation chassis, currently due for introduction in 2024. As part of its next 50 presentation, Super Formula signalled an intention to move towards a 2-race format for some weekends in 2022, with a race each day planned for the Saturday and the Sunday. No further details were given on which events or how many might follow this format, which was most recently used last year for the penultimate round of the season at Suzuka in December. Well, that's all for now. Head over to motorsport.com for more on all of today's top stories. I'm Chris McCarthy. Join us again here on Motorsport TV Live for all the latest news from the world of motorsport. Bye for now.